Agenda item number 1 is a motion to approve the minutes of the city council meeting held on March the 5th of 2007. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 is Andrews Investment 7th edition, and Sarah, you'll lead us through that.
Yes, first we have the annexation resolution. And annexing property in the northwest quarter of Section 4, 11652. This property is owned by Lawrence, Lee Allen, Ralph, and Janice Andrews. It's about 0.9 of an acre, one lot only. It's located on the east side of 19th Street and just south of the Target store. We've got a vicinity map up. They're requesting I-1 designation. We'll get into that in a little bit, and we're doing administrative plat right along with the annexation and zoning.
May I have a motion then for the approval of resolution number 07-14?
So moved.
So moved by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Sarah?
As I said, this property is, well, you need to open the public hearing.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing on ordinance number 07-08, establishing a zoning designation of R1 and A1. Anyone here to speak to the issue? Sarah, you'll begin.
Yes, this is actually an ordinance amending zoning district boundaries by establishing zoning designation of I-1 Light Industrial District for certain real property annexed into the city in the northwest quarter of Section 4, 11652. This does have a liquor license attached to the property, and we are in the process of doing administrative plat approval. We do recommend approval contingent upon platting being completed within 1 year. And I can show the zoning map up here. It is contiguous to other light industrial zoning. The property is this purple triangle. They're requesting light industrial, which is this red. The yellow is highway commercial, and this blue over here is heavy industrial, I-2. They're requesting I-1. We recommend approval of the zoning request contingent upon platting within 1 year.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else to speak to ordinance number 07-08 in the audience? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and go to council action. Is there a motion then to approve the ordinance number 07-07? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 3 is the Prairie Hills First Edition, and Sarah, you'll lead us through that.
First, we have annexation resolution, annexing property in section 29, 11753, and the northwest quarter of section 32, 11753. And this property is owned by Arnold Construction Company, Dennis Arnold, president. It's 30 acres, and it's located south of the prop, out at the lake, and it's, you can see this is Lake Kampasca, Stony Point. South Lake Drive comes around and curves here. This is actually 60th Street West that runs north and south, and South Lake Drive here. And the western boundary is Pompesca Drive. This is the site. For annexation, we're looking at 30 acres, and only about 16.5 of that is being platted right now. It's within the Prairie Hills Master Development Plan that's been approved, and we recommend approval of the annexation.
Is there a motion then for the approval of resolution 07-15? So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions or discussion?
Sarah, would you explain to the rest of the council what the
Park and Rec has asked for as far as the bike trail out that way?
I will, they have asked for a bike trail along the eastern boundary and most of the southern boundary. And it stops about in here where the grade, they were gonna put it all the way along and decided to neck it down. The bike trail will probably go across the street at that point due to the grade. And that takes care of part of the park dedication requirement.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Sarah?
The second reading of the zoning ordinance, an ordinance amending zoning district boundaries by establishing zoning designation of R1 Single Family Residential District and A1 Agricultural District for certain real property annexed into the city.
I'll open it to a public hearing. Sarah, would you like to begin?
Sure. As I said, this is not all being developed right now. They would like to put up a different map which shows the different portions. It's loading up here. This area that's outlined in purple will have an R1 designation, and everything outside of the purple that's within the red will have an A1 agricultural designation. And the reason they're just platting these lots, the residential lots right now at this time, and the ag lots are actually less than our minimum 35 acres, and so we're recommending there be no building right associated with those lots until they're rezoned. We do expect part of that to be rezoned in the future when they plat. The portion that's to be zoned R1 is currently being platted also. Let's see. Yes, that's.
Is that it then,
Yeah,
Sarah?
so to the zone.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to ordinance number 07-08? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and go to council action. Is there a motion for the approval of ordinance number 07-08? So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Before we begin the letter of assurance, I believe most of you received a letter from Roger Adams to Mr. Arnold regarding this development. And I'd like to make a few remarks regarding the letter of assurance to put it in its proper context and review some negotiations on its terms. As you know, our ordinance requires developers of residential property to either dedicate 5% of their land for park purposes or to make a cash donation equal to 5% of the land. The decision on whether to accept the land or a cash donation is left to the park board. In the event cash donation is selected, our ordinance requires the land's value be determined by the Director of Equalization. The cash donation is made either at master planning or annexation, again, at the discretion of the park board. For this development, cash donation is due at annexation. That fact notwithstanding, more than 11 months ago, while undergoing sketch plan review, Mr. Adams contacted the Director of Equalization for a value determination. In light of the fact that the annexation is before us now tonight, Roger recently contacted the Director of Equalization for a revised valuation. Well, as you might expect, the valuation increased. At the last Plan Commission meeting, in addition to the cash donation amount, there were additional items in the letter of assurance that were left to city staff and the developer to work out. Mr. Arnold requested we discuss all the outstanding issues together, and I'll leave to Sarah to discuss the additional items. But as to the cash donation amount, I would ask the council's consideration to accept the amount of $15,000 to be payable in 3 equal annual installments, with the first payment being made at the time the annexation resolution is recorded. That amount was derived after a more than an hour-and-a-half long discussion among approximately 10 people in my office, as well as through the help of the Director of Equalization, a private appraisal, the purchase price paid for the land, and review of other recent comparable sales in the area. In the event the council accepts that recommendation, I believe that Mr. Arnold will waive his right to any appeal to the cash donation amount, and we can continue this project moving forward. Before we take action on that item, I'll ask Sarah to discuss the additional items that have been agreed upon and are in the letter of assurance for your consideration. Sarah?
Thank you. There is a letter of assurance that came in your packet, and for the most part, everything in there is accurate, but there are a few things that changed. First of all, the street name in the plat was going to be 2nd Avenue North. That has been changed and now is Prairie Hills Avenue, and so every reference to the street within the plat has been changed, and now it says Prairie Hills Drive, or Prairie Hills Avenue, excuse me. That's one change. Another change is the agreement for Pompesca Boulevard here, which we're actually calling Pompesca Drive in the letter of assurance. This plat would have had to build Pompesca Drive along the western boundary of Lot 1. That's their responsibility. And in looking at the existing street out there, and the way that this is laid out, we've come to a different agreement, and that is the developer has agreed to pay cash in lieu of construction. And then at a future date, if the city decides that that street needs to be reconstructed with curb and gutter, then we will use the cash that he's put already now forward and into that. So he won't be responsible in the future to participate when the road is upgraded to a city standard with curb and gutter. So we have the cash amount is indicated in the letter of assurance. It's $18,455. And the business about the park contribution of $15,000 in 3 payments, that's listed out in detail in the letter of assurance. And finally, the last change is, well, it's actually not a change, but I think I should bring it forward for you to understand. We're delaying paving on the section of road, which is actually outside of what's being platted. This is the last platted lot, and they'll be building the road complete with curb and gutter and pavement up till this point. And then this part will have curb and gutter, but they're just going to leave it gravel until they have either sold 3 lots or have agreements for 3 lots within the plat, or 2 years has passed. So it won't be more than 2 years. Normally we wait a year to pave, so it's actually an extension of a year for paving. Then they'll drive in and out there on the gravel, and we didn't have a problem with that. That's another deviation from the way we might normally do it. But those are the changes that are in the letter of assurance from what you see in your packet. And I do have a signed letter of assurance. The developer has already signed it, so I'm good to go with that.
That, Sarah, that includes the bicycle path, right?
Right. And the bicycle path is shown on the plat and referred to in the letter of assurance, that it satisfies part of the park requirement.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah. Then do we need a motion then to approve the letter of assurance from the
Yes.
council? May I have a motion then for the approval of the letter of assurance? So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next is item D, is the plat, which is resolution number 07-20. Sarah, is there any explanation on that, or?
Just that we have 8 residentially zoned lots, and the street construction will include curb and gutter, and sidewalk will be built along with the home building permits. And that, we recommend approval of that too.
Is there a motion then for the approval of resolution number 07-20? So moved by Alderman Garnos and seconded by Alderman Giselbeck. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Good luck, Mr. Arnold. Moving on to agenda item number 4 is the River Ridge Estates 4th edition. We'll begin with Sarah.
Okay, first we have the annexation resolution for River Ridge Estates 4th edition. This is property owned by High Plains Development Corporation. Greg Hofteaser is the president. It's about 15.1 acres which are being platted, and 60 acres are being annexed with an ag designation. This area to be annexed will not be platted at this time. And actually the reason they did not intend to annex this at this time, but a little bit of their plat extended outside of the city limits, so they ended up just bringing the rest of their property to be annexed.
Is there a motion then for the approval of the annexation resolution number 07-16? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Sarah?
This is a second reading of ordinance number 07-09, an ordinance amending zoning district boundaries by establishing zoning designation of R1 single-family residential district and A1 agricultural district for certain real property annexed into the city in the northwest quarter of section 19-117-52 and the northeast quarter of section 24-117-53.
Okay, we'll begin with the public hearing, and Sarah, you'll begin.
Okay. This entire area lies within the approved master plan for River Ridge Estates. And the property lies north of 20th Avenue North and west of 2nd Street West. And this would be 2nd Street West. And this is 20th Avenue North. 14th Avenue North is down here. The 15.1 acres being requested to be zoned R1 is this purple area, most of which is already in the city limits before we annex this. Just one little corner peeked out. And they are planning 37 residential lots within that platted area. And the unplatted area will remain A1 for now until they come forward with a future plat. This is consistent with the approved master plan, and we are in the process of doing an administrative plat approval. We recommend approval of the zoning contingent upon platting River Ridge Estates 4th edition within 1 year.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the River Ridge Estates 4th edition, ordinance 07-09? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and request council action. Is there a motion for the approval of ordinance number 07-09? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any further questions or discussion?
Yeah, does that north border go where the bypass will be?
Yes.
It does, okay, good.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Sarah. Next, item number 5 is the first reading of ordinance number 07-10, rezoning a portion of City Park to C2 local commercial district. Sarah?
Ordinance 07-10, ordinance amending zoning district boundaries by rezoning certain real property from R1 single-family residential district to C2 local commercial district. This is part of City Park out at the lake, and it's currently zoned R1, and it's going to have an event-based rezone, which means, and this is kind of a new thing, it would be R1 at all times except when there's an event going on, which is approved ahead of time by certain parties which are approved to hold the event, such as the Wing Fling. And it would have a C2 designation just during the time when the event is going on. And then as soon as the event's over, it would revert back to an R1 designation. There isn't any building being proposed, and the purpose for this is so that they could have a beer garden for those particular events.
Okay,
Question.
Before we begin, I wanted to give the Game Fish and Park an opportunity to speak. When we're going to have the public hearing, they're going to, will not be able to attend. Mr. Wicks, did you want to speak to the issue?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. We just wanted to make sure the council was aware that we have concerns about serving alcohol in a boating, water-related activity and that close to Lake Kempesca. And we wanted to make sure the council understood that we have concerns about that. And in the past, we've had problems with that very thing. And so we just wanted to relay those concerns to the council. We're certainly not against fundraising or anything like that or any benevolent organizations. But we just have concerns about serving alcohol that close to the boating activity that's going to be taking place there.
Okay, thank you, Dave. There will be a public hearing here, and how far away will that be, Sarah?
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, so then we'll have everyone have a chance to speak. But for right now, Alderman Garnos, you wish to make a comment?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, isn't there a city ordinance regarding no alcoholic beverages on dedicated parks?
Roger, you can come to the podium if you want, but I know that in the time that I've been here, Gordon, in the less than 6 years I've been here, the council has modified the restrictions on alcoholic beverages in parks.
Yeah, the current ordinance does not restrict the consumption of alcohol in public parks. And City Park's a good example with the campground specifically. It's a part of camping for a lot of the people. And so right now the ordinance does not restrict it in any city park.
Thank you, Roger. As I said, we'll go on to the next agenda item. There will be a
Paul,
public.
I wonder,
Whoops.
I know that the discussion mainly takes place next time, but I think this is a good opportunity for a heads up for the community to let us know before the next meeting what people are thinking about this. I have some real concerns. I certainly agree with Game Fish and Parks, the safety issue. You know, you're mixing water and swimming and boating and alcohol, and to me, it just does not make a good mix. Nor does a family event strike me as something that needs to have a beer garden. I just can't see the rationale with that. Since the Wing Fling last year, which I know was a successful event, I've heard a lot of comments from people in the community. I've heard comments that maybe they could add a few more family-oriented activities. Maybe there could be like an arts part of it, an arts in the park type of thing. Maybe there could be a flea market added. Not one person has said to me, I wish I could have drank beer out there that day. I think it's just something that we have to think about and be concerned about. What kind of message are we sending? We're calling it a family activity, but yet we have to have people walking around with a beer in their hands. I think we just need to give that some consideration before the next time, and I would welcome anybody that has an opinion on this to call me. I'm thinking maybe I speak for the other council people too, so that we have your opinions when we vote on this. Next time it's an important issue.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6 is the consideration of bids received for the following. We'll begin with the Phase 4 Uptown Streetscape Renovation Project. And Bill Riefenberger?
Good evening. I don't have a copy of what Tracy's given you. Is it the same as what we got from Dave? Okay. The bids came in, glad to say, well under what we estimated from last year. So it would be my recommendation that Gray Construction was just slightly less than Dallas Hanson. We accept Gray Construction's bid for the base bid, which was for the 2 blocks of Broadway, the 2 blocks of Maple, the alternate one, which was for 2nd Avenue in front of City Hall here. Also now, which we didn't think we could get, the alternate 2, which would be for the other block of 2nd Avenue, and then the alternate 3, A, B, and C, which was for a watering system for the trees and for the flowers that are on the lampposts. Currently, we've got somebody hired. He goes up and down the street pulling a wagon and watering those all day long and really can't keep up. It's been since I got involved in this kind of pet peeve of mine, thinking, why don't we have a watering system? Because it seems pretty natural to do that, and I've investigated in a couple other cities. Makes much easier to handle, and of course, much better looking flowers. So with that, we're well under budget. And alternate 4 was for benches. I recommend that we just do nothing with the benches right now. save that money aside. We've got some additional expenses we know we're going to have to deal with under sidewalks and stuff, which I know Herb is somewhat aware of. It's not going to be a surprise, but this does give us roughly about $50,000 to $60,000 additional to work with that. And if we just leave the benches out of the picture right now, we can address those next year, I'm thinking. So,
Good job, Bill. Is there a motion then for the approval of the bid of grade construction for Phase 4? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Bill. 6B, landfill compost pad rehabilitation, Mike Berger.
Thank you. Bids were opened on Wednesday, March 7th for the 2007 compost pad rehabilitation project. 2 bids were received. The high bid from McLaughlin and Schultz was in the amount of $205,926.65, and the low bid from Bituminous Paving of Ortonville was in the total amount of $165,072.25. So the low bid is $40,854.40 below the high bid. Just to go over the major differences real quickly, the low bid price for mobilization was $8,500 below the high bid. The low bid price for shaping, fill, and grading was $9 a ton versus the high bid price of $12.50 a ton, for a total difference of $6,898.50. And the low bid price for earth and fill was $7 per ton versus the high bid price of $13.50 per ton, for a total difference of $6,175. And then finally, the low bid price for 4-inch asphalt surfacing was $58 a ton versus the high bid price of $72 a ton, for a total difference on that item of $21,700. In the budget, we have a total of $218,700 for the engineering and construction of the project, and we have been awarded a 50% grant up to $109,000 to help fund the project. And so it's our recommendation to award the bid to the low bidder, Bituminous Paving of Ortonville, in the amount of $165,072.25, and this comes with Public Works approval.
Is there a motion for the approval?
So move.
So moved by Alderwoman Walder, seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Item number 7 is the designation of city depositories, Resolution 07-10. Tracy?
Thank you. The council has typically annually in the past designated city depositories, and all of those depositories that you see listed in paragraph 1 of this resolution have in fact been approved by the council or authorized by the council in past actions. The difference is that in this case we've put this in the form of a resolution that is acceptable to the local banks and follows their wording and formatting for the information that's provided, with some modifications to make it fit a city government. So this is a little bit of a different way to get to the same place we've done in the past in terms of authorizing where we are able to deposit city funds. Any questions at all?
If not, then is there a motion for the approval of Resolution 07-10?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8 is the approval of a transfer of control of the Prairie Wave Telecommunications Incorporated, Resolution 07-18. Stanton?
Thank you, Mayor. I really don't have a lot to say about this item, but as you recall, you authorized the city to retain the services of Moss and Barnett to review this transfer request to Knology on behalf of the city of Watertown, and I believe an executive summary as well as the resolution are included in your agenda this evening. Tracy and I have reviewed the information and recommend that you approve the resolution according to its terms, which include the city being reimbursed for all the legal fees that have been incurred in that review. And we also heard this afternoon from Bob Fain, who is unable to be here this evening on behalf of Prairie Wave, but he concurs with our recommendation.
Well, thank you, Stanton. Is there a motion then for the approval of Resolution 07-18? So moved by Alderman Heller and seconded by Alderman Solberg. Is there any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 9 is the authorizing the election of the members of the Watertown-Connington County Regional Railroad Authority, Resolution 07-21. Stanton?
Thank you, Mayor. As we do each year, Tracy and I get elected or appointed to this esteemed Rail Authority Board. I don't believe that since our last appointment a year ago that we've even convened as a rail authority, so there's not really any heavy lifting, but we are required to be appointed on an annual basis, and we recommend that you do that again tonight.
Is there a motion then for the approval of Resolution 07-21?
I'd move that and appreciate the hard work.
Motion by Alderman Gizelback. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Walter. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 10 is the authorization for the mayor and the finance officer to sign a quitclaim deed for abandoned railway line that's associated with the First Avenue North Extension project. Stanton?
Thank you, Mayor. If approved, this quitclaim deed will convey any interest in this land that we've discussed on many occasions. It's located north of the Coho property and in the direct path of the planned First Avenue North Extension. I'm convinced beyond measure that the city has and almost probably never has had any interest in this property, direct or indirect, but because the title company wants to be certain that there's no potential entity or individual that has an interest in this land, they're requiring quitclaim deeds from the city, the county, the state of South Dakota through its Department of Transportation, Don Endries, and Coho Inc. Once all those quitclaim deeds have been received, the title company will advise Coho that they're now the owner and they can convey that portion of the land that we need for First Avenue North to the city. So I would recommend that you sign this quitclaim deed conveying whatever interest we have, which we all believe is nothing.
Is there a motion to that effect, please? So moved by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Stanton. Item number 11 is consideration of a change order number 1 to a contract with Midland Contracting Incorporated, and that's for the airport improvement project in the amount of $555.28. And Herb?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. This change order consists of two items. First is the cost for tree planting for the wetlands mitigation site on South Broadway, which was part of the airport runway project. We did the rest of that last fall. The requirement for tree planting arose as part of the Corps of Engineers permitting process after the original runway project contract was actually already awarded to Midland Construction. The cost of $1,655.28 includes tree planting and 4 years of cultivation by the Cottington County Conservation District. The use of the district for cultivation comes with the recommendation of the City Forestry Department from Park and Rec. They highly recommend that we use that approach. The second item on the change order is to substitute two arch pipe tees for two 60-inch under-drain manholes. The change here will cause a net reduction of $1,100 for this line item. So when you combine those two different events together, you have an overall increase of $555.28, which is AIP eligible. The city's portion of that cost will be an additional $16.66. So I'd certainly recommend the council approve this change order. And again, this comes with Public Works recommendation for approval from the March 13th meeting.
Thank you, Herb. Is there a motion then for the approval of change order number 1? So moved by Alderwoman Walter. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Gizelbeck. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 12 is the South Dakota Housing Development Authority 2007 Emergency Shelter Grant Program. And I believe we have someone here to speak to that. As to what you want us to do, I guess.
Thank you. I'm Lisa Fear. Looks like I got here just in the nick of time.
Yes, you did, Lisa. I was looking for you.
Yeah, I had a 7 o'clock speaking engagement, and so anyway, I made it, I guess. The Women's Resource Center does apply to the South Dakota Housing Authority for emergency shelter funds each year. And they do include one page in our grant application where we need to have a local government certify that we are acting on behalf of the city and also the county and other counties around us. And so their suggestion was to have the mayor sign this. I know there are other government agencies, but one was all that was asked for. And so this is something that we have applied for in the past, and what we do is we use the grant monies from this grant to make repairs and upkeep on our emergency shelter that's known as a Women's Resource Center.
And the city isn't under any obligation or anything like that financially? It's just sort of an endorsement, is that
Yes.
it, Lisa? Okay.
Yes.
And is there a motion then to allow the mayor to sign the South
I'll
Dakota?
make a motion that the mayor sign the grant application.
Motion by
Thank you,
Alderwoman
Nancy.
York, is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Next is a motion to approve business license applications. The first one is Judith L. Glow, taxi driver, for $25, and Barry J. Brumman for a taxi driver for $25. We'll take both of those together. Is there a motion for the approval?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Gizelbeck. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Is there any questions or discussion?
What's the Raptor do?
Let's see. Tracy, you got the information on the background.
We do on any applicant for a license as a cab driver, we do have them fingerprinted and submit that information, or they send it directly to the state for a criminal background check. And in addition, we also have our own PD do a local records background check. And both of the applicants are, have nothing in their record that would cause me to suggest that you shouldn't approve their license.
Thank you, Tracy. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 14 is consideration of an application for the abatement or refund of taxes by Delia M. Noahs in the amount of $32.08. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Gizelbeck. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 15 is the acknowledgement of a notice to conduct a raffle by the Lake Area Multi-District. Tracy, you know what they're going to be raffling, or Lake Area?
It says the raffle prize will be a children's playhouse,
Oh,
which is
good.
going to be built by their building trades program.
Okay. So is there a motion then to acknowledge that raffle? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll go to the open. If you'd like to refer you to the open agenda items, which we have two this evening. The first one being is the authorization for the city attorney to request an attorney general opinion, and this is in regards to municipalities' authority to require certain infrastructure improvements and obtain reimbursement therefore. And Stanton?
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, Watertown's in the process of a compliance review for some ADA issues, as a lot of communities have gone through that or are probably going to. But an interesting question has arisen as part of that process, and I posed it first to Carla Engel, who's lead counsel with DOT, and then a Deputy Attorney General in Pierre, and also visited with the city's attorneys from Sioux Falls, Rapid City, Deadwood, and a couple of others. And no one has known the answer to the question that I posed to them, and most have suggested that I ask for this permission tonight. In its simplest terms, I want to ask the Attorney General whether a municipality has the authority to assess improvements along the state trunk highway system right-of-way, and if so, can a city adopt a resolution which requires reimbursement directly to the city, or do we have to have the reimbursement flow through the state and then back to the city? I'd be happy to answer any questions if, based on that brief explanation, you have any, but I would appreciate your consent to pose this question to the folks in Pierre, and I'll make certain that I get the answer, whatever answer I get back to you.
Okay, a motion by Alderman Garnos to authorize the city attorney to request this opinion from Attorney General. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Heller. Any further questions or discussion?
Sounds complicated to me.
Stan will figure it out for us. Okay. Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The second item on the open is the authorization for the mayor and the finance officer to sign a consent to assignment of development agreement, and that's from Acrotech Midwest Incorporated to BMS Watertown Incorporated. And I believe this is nothing more than transferring the previous agreement over to BMS. Is that correct, Craig? There's no changes or anything. No.
Yeah, Craig Atkins, Focus Watertown Development Company. Yeah, there are no changes. The development company has already provided its consent to the master development agreement, the rail track access agreement, and also the master development agreement and the lease. So this would just allow us to kind of finish pulling the pieces together for the consent for the transaction between Acrotech and BMS.
Is there a motion then for that approval? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 17 is the old business. And I believe there is no old business to come before the council. Under 18 is any new business. Would just like to remind everyone there that tomorrow we're having the safety and the finance meeting. And both of those meetings will take place here in the council chambers. And that's due to the construction that's going on upstairs. Anyone else have anything to mention? If not, are there any liaison member reports?
Mayor, if I could,
Yes.
I'd just like to point out to the council that I did put on your desk a copy for each of you of the 2006 cash management and investment program report that the finance office staff put together. This report is required under our investment policy. It's really very little reading involved. There's lots of colorful charts and graphs in there that you might find interesting. I would just point out that 2006 was a very, very successful year for our investment program. In fact, we earned over $1.8 million of interest earnings for the year, so we're really pretty
Good
happy
job.
about that.
Yeah, good job, Tracy. Anyone else? Yes.
To get back to that thing out at City Park with the liquor license, having sat through the Park and Rec Board meeting on that, we struggled with that, like I'm sure we're going to struggle in the council. It was not a unanimous opinion to bring it to the council, but the majority did figure we should bring it to the council. And quite honestly, I don't understand how we can give park property or have it rezoned commercial. I really don't understand that, and I would hope that we could get an explanation from our city attorney before the next meeting, and so that we all understand that.
Thank you. I'm sure Stan will take care of that for us. We will need to go in executive session. If I could have a motion to that effect, please, in regards to
Can I ask the reason for going into executive session?
We're going into executive session for contract negotiations as requested by the city attorney.
If that means that we're going to talk about the Prairie Lakes Healthcare System chiller plant proposal, I object to that. I don't think we need to go into executive session for that. I think this is something that the public should and has a right to know what kind of discussions we're having about that.
Well, Stan, I need some direction here.
Well, the question that would, I guess to the extent we want to be a cards up group this evening, the question that's going to be asked of the council that's come directly from the Prairie Lakes Healthcare Systems is that back in 1991, the city conveyed the south 100 feet of the north 403 feet of Curlin's Outlet Number 1 to the St. Anne's Corporation, which, as we all know now, is Prairie Lakes Hospital. The hospital has requested, and the restriction on that conveyance was that it only be given to the hospital, or St. Anne's Corporation at the time, if it were used for parking purposes without further approval or grant from the city council. We have been approached, as you all know, you've received copies of the letter that have formalized the request that the city consider a negotiation type process where we entertained the idea of relaxing the restriction on parking purposes as to that south 100 feet. I thought it was certainly appropriate to have that conversation in executive session because there are some things that the hospital is going to be offering the city in exchange for considering that proposal. And if you want me to lay them out here, I will, but I certainly thought it was appropriate because we're negotiating the terms of a conveyance from about 15, 16 years ago to a corporation, which I presume was negotiated at the time, that we ought to have further conversations in executive session. But that is in substance the request that's before us from the Prairie Lakes Hospital Group.
So where do we go from here then, Stan? Do we need a motion, or should this be an agenda item for the next meeting, or what should we do here?
Well, I certainly think that it's appropriate to discuss land negotiations in executive session, but if the council doesn't want to make a motion to go into executive session, then we can have the conversation here.
Okay, let's go. We'll be discussing land negotiations. I'll open it up for anyone's comments on the council. Mr. Heller, would you like to continue your comments then on this?
I'd like to hear what Stanton has to say first. There's a proposal by Prairie Lakes Hospital System to have us give them permission to use the south 100 feet of the property that they own for other than parking purposes, and that other than parking purposes is to build some kind of a building to contain what they call a chiller plant. Quite honestly, I don't know what that is, but I assume it has something to do with air conditioning. Their other part of the proposal is that they would offer the use of that building as a public restroom for the kids who slide on that hill 4 or 5 months out of the year, or play on the hill. That's my understanding of the proposal, and if Stanton has something else to add to that, I'd appreciate hearing it.
Well, originally, as most of you know from the letter that you should have received last week, the initial proposal from the Prairie Lakes group included the possibility of placing that chiller. It's been described to me it's going to help modernize and improve the overall HVAC system of the entire hospital campus. I think they would like to have it centrally located, and placing it someplace else on the campus that they have. I believe that they have given careful consideration to that, but given the proximity to residential property within the area, I haven't been part of those discussions, but it's been alluded to that given the proximity of residences that are closer to the campus facility on the east side or in that area, that they figured that they would take this approach. The first discussion included the prospect of placing a portion of this chiller facility / warming house on a portion of the property that back in 1991 was declared dedicated solely for park purposes. Once property's been dedicated to a municipality solely and exclusively for park purposes, the only way you can change that use statutorily is to have an election, either a special election or as part of the general election. When the Prairie Lakes Hospital Group became aware of that fact, they said, we want to modify that proposal that was submitted last week. We're not interested in approaching the city to have a special election to change the use for that. You folks, some of you may know it as the Whitwam property. It was gifted to the city. There was no restriction placed on it back in 1973 when it was gifted. That's why in 1991 the city council adopted an ordinance saying it may never have been restricted back when we first got it, but we want everyone to know that we're restricting the use. It's dedicated for a park purpose. So since 1991, it's pretty much been off the shelf. I did not discover that, admittedly, until this morning, going through the basement archives. I was thumbing through old record books and old ordinance books. It's not at the courthouse. It's not really available for public consumption. I stumbled upon it just through the review of several other pieces of letters. So at the end of the day, the Prairie Lakes Hospital Group said, we know that we own the entire north 403 feet of Curlin's Outlot. That south 100 feet, there's a restriction on that. Right now, we can only use it as a parking lot. We own the north 303 feet, so if we can put something there, we could take a run at that and see. But my understanding from the way the site plan is laid out, that they would like the council to give some consideration to modifying the restriction placed on that south 100 feet to allow for some portion, and I confess I did not receive a revised site plan as to what portion of the chiller warming house facility would wind up in that south 100 feet, but that was the proposal that was conveyed to me late this afternoon.
Thank you, Stan. Where do we go from here? Is anyone would like to make a motion either to approve or not approve or table? Is there, I need some direction.
Stanton, in your negotiations, is there a timing that we need to proceed in a hurry, or is there time to discuss it and bring it back as a item on 3rd of April?
As you folks know from most executive sessions, when we're discussing the city's acquisition, lease, sale, whatever of property, typically the proposal is presented to you in executive session, and we generally leave without necessarily taking action, but with me having the authority on your behalf to negotiate, and you describe the limits of that negotiating authority. That's what I was going to ask for you tonight in executive session, as I typically would. So to your question directly, Dennis, I think, and if you review the letters from Mr. Roby on behalf of the Prairie Lakes Hospital group, their hope was that I was going to come out of the meeting tonight either in closed session or in open with a direction from you folks on whether it's something that you want to give me authority to pursue and put a little more meat on the chiller bone with regard to where it's going to be. It's all of those particulars that I presume you would want to know. So Dennis, I think tonight the only thing they're hoping is to hear whether or not I'm going to be able to talk to them any more about it.
George.
We could talk for hours about whether a building should be put up there on Skyline Drive across the street from the hospital. Quite honestly, I don't go along with that at all. That's you know, the hospital's already ruined the neighborhood up there. We don't need to make it any worse than that. To my way of thinking, there's just no use for a building on Skyline Drive, and I'm gonna, do everything I can to stop that from happening.
Is that a motion, George?
That would be a motion.
Is there a second to that motion to deny?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Garnos. Any further questions or discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Having been on the Parks Board for many years, when the Whitwam property came up, the residents across the street were very profound in saying no building on that street. And if you'll recall, several years ago, there was a proposal to build a clinic over just west of the hospital across the street, and that was turned down by the city.
To that
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. To that point, Gordon, with regard to the clinic discussion, in reviewing all the records, including the council minutes from a June meeting of 1984, I discovered that the city originally obtained the property from St. Anne's Corporation in 1973 with a restriction on its conveyance that it to be used for park and recreation purposes. In 1984, the council authorized the city to convey that land back to St. Anne's Corporation with the idea that they were going to build some some sort of clinic on that property. The conveyance actually occurred in 1986 back to St. Anne's Corporation, and they have held title to that property ever since. So I know that back in 1984, the council had a conversation and authorized the reconveyance back to that land we'd previously gotten as a park with the idea that there was going to be some improvement, some structure constructed on that north 403 feet. For what it's worth, and we gave it back to them in 86, and they've had it ever since.
Any other comments before we vote?
Yeah, I guess.
Hold it. Nancy?
I'm going to concur with George and take his word for it that that's what the folks up there in his ward are looking for. I do take a little bit of issue with you that Prairie Lakes has ruined the neighborhood up there. I appreciate Prairie Lakes being there and the things that they've done, but I assume that you know what your people up there are looking for, so I'm going to go along with George.
Thank you, Nancy. Alderman Solberg?
I guess I agree with Stanton, and I think we don't know at this point how imperative that this structure is needed for Prairie Lakes Hospital, whether it's a necessity, whether there's alternatives that it can be placed at a different area, and that. And I guess I would like to see Stanton go ahead and do some negotiations and maybe come back with some alternatives, whether this is an alternative or not, or whether there's a better alternative. But rather than killing it right tonight, I'd like to see us see some alternatives rather than killing it.
Yes, Duffy?
I go along with that fact that I don't think we have enough information to really knock it down and kill it dead, because the hospital has done a lot of good, and where we're at now, right now, is it's really important, I think, that we understand and know all the sides of it, and not just one or two viewpoints.
Alderman Meisenheimer?
At the time that they were looking at the building that you alluded to, there was a very concerned group of people that remained parkland, and it wasn't just the neighborhood up there. At that time, that was in my ward, George, and the people were very adamant they did not want that changed.
I guess, and I think a lot of those people have moved out of that area, and the hospital has purchased some of the property. I went up there and looked at that, and the building site that is proposed that we have in our packet does not obscure any of the overlooking St. Anne's Hill and everything. The size of it is not enormous. I think it would be a benefit to sledders and that, and I would just like to see some alternatives, some more discussion on it, and not kill it tonight.
Well, if they want to, they want more discussion on it, Dennis, they can bring it back before us. But for now, let's move the question.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to not go forward with the killer at the St. Anne's location site. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed?
No.
We have a roll call, please, Tracy.
Okay, on the motion to deny the request, we'll begin with Mrs. York. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes? Mrs. Arbogast.
Yes.
Mr. Garnis.
Yes.
Mr. Gisselbeck.
No.
Mr. Heller.
Yes.
Mr. Meisenheimer.
Yes.
Mr. Solberg. No. Mrs. Walder.
Yes. Yes.
Count 6 in favor and 2 opposed.
Motion passed to not go forward. That concludes the items on the agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? So moved by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.